Sometimes it takes just one word to change the direction of a conversation, to challenge a narrative, and to shake the foundations of power. Words are not just sounds, they are forces. And today, I want to take you into a moment where one single word from India's Foreign Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, did exactly that, a word so sharp, so unapologetic, that it echoed across America and the world. This is not just a story about diplomacy, it's a lesson about courage, identity, and the undeniable weight of truth. And by the end of this speech, you will see how one word can carry the power of 1,000. Words are not just a collection of letters strung together. They carry immense power, especially in the realm of diplomacy. In the international arena, where nations often weigh every phrase with extreme caution, a single word can shift perceptions, redefine narratives, and alter the course of relationships between countries. Diplomacy has always been a game of subtlety, where tone and choice of language can mean the difference between peace and conflict, respect and ridicule, or cooperation and confrontation. When Dr. S. Jaishankar, India's foreign minister, delivered a single word that reverberated across America, it highlighted how powerful language can be when used with precision and confidence. Unlike long speeches or lengthy negotiations, sometimes it is the brevity of expression that carries the most weight. A carefully chosen word can cut through layers of political posturing and expose the truth with undeniable clarity. This is because words, when used strategically, do not just communicate ideas, they evoke emotions, trigger debates, and challenge deeply rooted assumptions. In Jaishankar's case, the one word he used was not merely a response, it was a statement of authority, a refusal to bow to pressure, and a declaration that India would no longer play by the old rules dictated by others. The impact of this word was magnified because it contrasted with the expectation of measured diplomacy. Instead of wrapping his stance in cautious, diplomatic phrases, he allowed the power of one bold word to carry the weight of India's position. What makes such moments remarkable is that they are not just heard, they are remembered. Long after statistics fade and long speeches are forgotten, it is the sharp, striking words that live on. Think about history, freedom, resistance, independence, justice. These single words have mobilized nations, inspired revolutions, and redefined societies. Similarly, in modern diplomacy, when a leader or minister delivers a word that resonates, it often becomes symbolic of a larger shift in global dynamics. Jaishankar's words served as a mirror, reflecting not only India's growing confidence, but also the cracks in the established power structures of global politics. The reason such words shake nations, even powerful ones like America, lies in the psychological impact. A word can challenge pride, force reflection, and disrupt narratives that had gone unquestioned for decades. America, long accustomed to setting the tone of global discourse, found itself unsettled when confronted with a word that refused to conform. That unease was proof of the power contained in language power that does not depend on military strength or economic dominance, but on clarity, courage, and conviction. In essence, the lesson here is universal. Never underestimate the force of language. Diplomacy is not just about negotiations behind closed doors, it is also about the words leaders choose to project to the world. When used with intelligence and intent, a single word can carry more influence than an entire treaty. Jaishankar's example reminds us that true strength in communication lies not in the length of what is said, but in the depth and decisiveness of how it is spoken. Dr. S. Jaishankar's style of communication is unlike that of many traditional diplomats. Where others may choose to surround their thoughts with layers of ambiguity, he is known for precision. His ability to condense complex geopolitical realities into clear, confident, and impactful statements makes his words resonate far beyond the immediate audience. In a world where diplomacy often hides behind vagueness, Jaishankar's approach stands out as refreshingly direct. The power of his communication lies in the balance he maintains between sharpness and composure, never allowing his words to sound reckless but also refusing to dilute their meaning. This calculated clarity is what makes him one of the most effective voices in international relations today. When he speaks, each phrase feels deliberate, as though every word has been weighed against its potential consequences. This is what sets him apart. Many leaders often fall into two extremes. Either they speak too cautiously, losing the essence of their message, or they choose bluntness that borders on aggression. Jaishankar, however, operates in the space between. He chooses his words with surgical precision, crafting statements that are firm but not inflammatory, decisive yet diplomatic. That careful articulation ensures his voice carries authority without alienating his listeners. This strategic communication makes him not just a representative of India, but a master of narrative building. What amplifies the impact of his words is his tone. He delivers strong points without raising his voice, embodying calmness even when addressing contentious issues. This composure signals confidence, and confidence in turn demands respect. It becomes clear to his counterparts that his words are not defensive reactions, but deliberate assertions of India's position. In this way, his communication style shifts the balance of power in conversations. Instead of responding on the terms set by others, he defines the terms of engagement himself. This is a subtle but powerful strategy that allows India to assert itself as an equal player in global dialogues rather than a passive participant. Another dimension of his style is the way he simplifies complex issues without oversimplifying them. International relations involve layers of history, politics, and power dynamics that can overwhelm audiences. Yet Jaishankar distills these complexities into clear, relatable expressions that ordinary people can grasp while still holding weight with policymakers and experts. This dual effectiveness allows his words to resonate across multiple levels, from headlines in the media to closed-door meetings with world leaders. By combining intellectual depth with accessible expression, he ensures his messages spread far and wide, maximizing their influence. The precision of Jaishankar's communication is also a reflection of discipline. Every word he speaks is rooted in a deep understanding of global affairs, but also in restraint, knowing when to speak and when silence is more powerful. That balance prevents his statements from being dismissed as rhetoric. Instead, they come across as credible and authoritative. This credibility is what makes his words difficult to ignore, even by nations that may disagree with him. Ultimately, Jaishankar's style demonstrates that communication in diplomacy is not just about speaking. It is about strategy. The choice of words, the tone of delivery, the timing of response, and the clarity of expression all come together to form an art. His precision turns language into a weapon that does not shout but cuts deeply. By mastering the art of strategic communication, he shows that true influence lies not in the length of what is said, but in the sharpness of how it is conveyed. For decades, the global narrative has often been shaped by Western powers, with the United States at the forefront of setting the tone in international discussions. Their dominance has been reflected not only in military or economic might, but also in the way issues are framed, questions are posed, and answers are expected. Many nations, especially in the global South, have been accustomed to responding within the boundaries laid out by the West, often hesitating to challenge the assumptions embedded in those narratives. This pattern created an unspoken hierarchy where the West led the conversation and others followed. Dr. S. Jaishankar's one-word firm, unapologetic, and loaded with meaning disrupted that order. It was not just a response to a question, but a challenge to the entire structure of Western dominance in discourse. The significance of such a moment lies in the shift it symbolizes. When a representative of India, a country long subjected to the weight of colonial history and Western lectures, chooses to respond with bold simplicity, it signals that the old dynamics are no longer acceptable. The world is witnessing a transition where rising powers refuse to let their narratives be overshadowed. Jaishankar's word was not just about the issue at hand, it carried within it a message to America and the West. The days of unquestioned dominance in global conversations are fading. Other voices will now be heard, and they will not hesitate to speak plainly. This disruption also highlights the psychological aspect of global power. The West, particularly the U.S., has often relied on the assumption that its framing of issues will be accepted as the standard. By defying that expectation with a single word, Jaishankar stripped away that advantage. His refusal to conform showed that India was willing to stand shoulder with powerful nations, challenging them not with aggression but with dignity. This kind of assertiveness unsettles those who have long grown comfortable in their dominant role. It reveals that power is not just about who has more resources, but also about who controls the narrative. The ripple effect of this disruption was felt widely. In America, political commentators, journalists, and analysts picked up on the significance of the moment. Some admired the clarity and courage, while others viewed it as a challenge to U.S. authority, but regardless of perspective, the fact remained: one word had forced a reconsideration of assumptions. That reconsideration is precisely what makes Western dominance feel shaken. It shows that even without military confrontation or economic conflict, the balance of influence can be shifted through language. What makes Jaishankar's challenge even more powerful is that it was not delivered with hostility. It was calm, precise, and direct, which made it difficult to dismiss. If it had come across as combative, it could have been brushed aside as rhetoric. Instead, it struck at the heart of the issue by exposing the imbalance in global discourse. By doing so, he invited not just America, but the entire world to rethink how conversations are conducted and whose voices get to define the terms. In the end, Jaishankar's one word symbolizes a larger movement in global politics, a movement away from unilateral dominance toward a multipolar world where power is shared, not imposed. His statement was more than a diplomatic reply. It was a declaration of independence in thought and voice. It showed that nations like India are no longer content to simply respond to the West. Instead, they are ready to redefine the very framework of dialogue, proving that true strength lies not in echoing dominant powers, but in confidently asserting one's own identity. India's voice on the global stage has often been shaped by its colonial past and the weight of external expectations. For many years, it was seen as a nation striving to be acknowledged, carefully balancing its statements so as not to ruffle powerful feathers. Yet in recent times, particularly through leaders like Dr. S. Jaishankar, India has shed much of that hesitation. What we witness now is a nation unafraid to assert its identity, to speak on its own terms, and to define its place in the international order with confidence. His use of one word that unsettled America was not merely about clever diplomacy. It was a reflection of India's unapologetic stance, a declaration that it would no longer be confined to roles written for it by others. Identity, when expressed in global forums, is not about arrogance, it is about authenticity. India's assertion of identity is rooted in its civilizational history, democratic values, and growing influence as an economic and geopolitical power. Jaishankar's statement was an extension of this identity, demonstrating that India is no longer content to be a secondary voice or a nation caught between competing blocs. Instead, it is ready to be heard in its full voice without dilution. By choosing directness over deference, Jaishankar projected India's confidence not just to America, but to the entire world. It was as if he was saying, "This is who we are, this is what we stand for, and we will not compromise our truth to fit into someone else's narrative." This assertion also reflects India's transformation in self-perception. In earlier decades, India often sought validation from global powers. Today, it speaks from a position of self-assurance shaped by its technological advancements, military capabilities, and role as a voice for the global South. Jaishankar's word was symbolic of this shift. It showed that India no longer sees itself as needing to justify its choices or defend its existence on terms dictated by others. Instead, it carries the weight of its history and the momentum of its future, speaking as a leader, not as a follower. Such assertiveness is also deeply connected to the dignity of a nation. When India refuses to be lectured or pressured into compliance, it is asserting the dignity of its people, its culture, and its sovereign right to make independent decisions. The ability to express this through simple, direct communication is what gives it strength. Other countries that have long felt sidelined by Western dominance see in India a reflection of their own struggles, a reminder that their voices, too, can carry weight if spoken with conviction. Thus, India's assertion of identity does not only serve itself, it becomes an example and inspiration for others. The most powerful aspect of this identity is its balance. India is not isolating itself or closing doors on dialogue. On the contrary, it is engaging with the world openly but without fear. It shows that one can be diplomatic without being submissive, cooperative without being dependent. Jaishankar's one word captured this duality perfectly: firm in identity yet respectful in tone, grounded in history yet forward, looking in ambition. This is the essence of India's rise and identity that is not borrowed from others, but carved out of its own journey. Ultimately, the assertion of identity is about reclaiming narrative control. For far too long, the story of nations like India was written elsewhere. Now, through leaders like Jaishankar, India is writing its own story, and doing so in words that the world cannot ignore. It is not about defiance for its own sake, but about clarity, dignity, and the courage to speak as equals. This transformation marks the arrival of a new India, one that speaks not with hesitation but with conviction, not with borrowed phrases but with its own authentic voice. When Dr. Jaishankar delivered that single, decisive word, it was not only India that felt its weight. America did too, and the reaction was immediate. In the United States, where political discussions and media analysis dominate public life, such a sharp and unapologetic response from a foreign leader could not be ignored. Within hours, journalists, commentators, and think tanks began dissecting the moment, asking why it struck such a nerve. The fact that it came from India, a nation with which America maintains both strategic ties and occasional tensions, added to its significance. Suddenly, a single word had become a conversation point in newsrooms, policy circles, and even casual debates among citizens who follow global politics. The ripple effect was powerful because America is unaccustomed to being challenged so directly, particularly by partners it often views as allies. For decades, the United States has enjoyed the role of setting narratives, posing tough questions, and expecting measured responses. What Jaishankar did was flip that script. His word forced America to confront its own assumptions about how much influence it still holds over the global narrative. This sense of disruption was unsettling because it hinted at a shift in the balance of respect, a reminder that even powerful nations are not immune to being questioned. Media outlets picked up on this moment and amplified it further. Some praised the bluntness, calling it a refreshing display of honesty in an age of scripted diplomacy. Others criticized it as confrontational, suggesting that it could strain relations. Either way, the word achieved what few diplomatic statements managed to do: it created debate. And in the American political space, debate is a form of acknowledgement. When something dominates headlines and primetime discussions, it is proof that it has struck a collective nerve. Jaishankar's one word did exactly that, transforming a routine exchange into a headline-making event. The ripple effect also extended into policy circles, where experts began evaluating what this tone from India meant for the future of U.S. India relations. Was it a passing remark, or was it an indication of a more confident and assertive India that would no longer shy away from disagreeing openly with Washington. This question lingered in diplomatic discussions and policy think tanks, showing how even a brief statement can spark long-term reflection. By forcing America to ask these questions, Jaishankar's word shifted the psychological balance of the relationship from one of assumed hierarchy to one of equality. Beyond the political class, the American public, especially those following international affairs, saw the moment as symbolic of a changing world order. For years, America has been used to hearing familiar narratives from allies and partners, narratives that often reinforced U.S. dominance. To suddenly hear a counter-narrative in such a direct form was striking. It challenged not only policymakers, but also ordinary viewers to reconsider America's role in a world that is no longer unipolar. In essence, the ripple effect in America was not about one word alone. It was about what the word represented. It was a reminder that the world is shifting, that voices once considered secondary now speak with authority, and that America must adapt to a reality where it cannot always expect compliance. The fact that a single expression could spark such widespread reaction shows the power of Jaishankar's communication and the depth of its impact. It was not just India making a statement, it was the world telling America that the ground beneath its feet is moving. Leadership is often measured not by the number of words spoken, but by the weight carried in each word. Dr. Jaishankar's choice of a single, firm word that unsettled America reflects a deeper lesson in leadership: the courage to embrace clarity, the wisdom to know when brevity is stronger than elaboration, and the confidence to stand one's ground without aggression. True leaders understand that influence is not always about being the loudest voice in the room. It is about being the most certain. By saying less yet meaning more, Jaishankar demonstrated that leadership in diplomacy, as in life, is about precision, conviction, and timing. One of the key lessons this moment reveals is that courage is central to leadership. It takes courage to resist the temptation of long explanations and instead distill one's stance into something sharp and undeniable. Many leaders fall into the habit of over-explaining, hoping to soften the impact of their words or appease their listeners, but courage lies in resisting that instinct. Jaishankar's brevity showed that leadership means having the confidence to let the truth stand on its own, unshielded by excessive justification. It is a reminder that sometimes the fewer words you use, the stronger they resonate. Another aspect of leadership reflected here is composure. Great leaders never lose control of their tone, even when delivering difficult truths. Jaishankar's word carried no anger, no raised voice, no unnecessary theatrics. Instead, it was calm, measured, and deliberate. That calmness is a powerful lesson. True leaders do not need to shout to be heard. They lead with a presence that commands respect without demanding it. Composure under pressure not only strengthens credibility, but also demonstrates inner strength, showing followers and critics alike that the leader is unshaken. This moment also underscores the importance of authenticity in leadership. When leaders speak from a place of conviction, their words carry natural authority. Jaishankar's choice was not about clever phrasing or rhetorical flourish. It was about speaking India's truth without apology. Authenticity like this cannot be faked, and it is what makes words resonate across borders. Leaders who lead authentically inspire others, not just because of what they say, but because people sense that their words reflect their true beliefs. That sincerity builds trust, and trust is the foundation of influence. Leadership also requires timing, the ability to know when to speak and when to stay silent. In diplomacy, where every sentence can ripple across continents, timing is everything. Jaishankar's word landed at the exact moment it needed to, in response to pressure, in defiance of assumption, in defense of identity. That precision in timing is a hallmark of leadership. It reminds us that being strategic is not about speaking constantly, but about speaking effectively when the impact will be greatest. Finally, the lesson here is about dignity. Leaders who uphold dignity in their words and actions not only elevate themselves, but also those they represent. Jaishankar's one word carried the dignity of an entire nation, showing that leadership is not personal but representative. It is about carrying the weight of others' voices and delivering them with integrity. This moment teaches us that true leaders are not just individuals, they are vessels of collective identity and strength. In the end, the greatest lesson is simple. Leadership is not about how much you say, but how deeply what you say can move others. One word, spoken with courage, clarity, and conviction, can shake even the most powerful nations. That is the essence of leadership, not quantity, but quality, not noise, but impact.